Today marks the finale of our Pushing the Conversation Forward marathon in honor of Women's History Month. This whole experience has been very rewarding for me because we've had the honor of having many women come on and share their experiences with us, and I've just learned so much about all of them, including myself and Crystal. And I know I did this at the beginning, but I feel that it's only right to thank Floyd and Leonard again for allowing us to use Mayweather Promotions platform to do this series where we've been able to talk to women. I'm really appreciative of them for that. And now I'm going to let Crystal introduce today's guest.
Thank you, Nicole. I can't believe we are at the end of Women's Month. We have talked to so many inspiring women. Honestly, before I even get to the next guest, I just want to thank all of the women who have been on the platform and who have been sharing their stories, because I think that throughout the series, there's been different topics where every person, even if you have never worked in sports and entertainment, have been an athlete, there's still gems in every episode that people can really walk away with and feel inspired by. So again, to Nicole's point, I do want to thank Floyd and Leonard for allowing us to do this. And we have plans of continuing to push the conversation forward even beyond Women's Month. So back to my next guest. Her list of accolades is too long, so we're just going to focus on the most present. We have 2020 WNBA MVP, 2018 WNBA Rookie of the Year, unanimously, and two-time WNBA All-Star 2018 and 2019, Las Vegas Aces WNBA player and activist, A'ja Wilson.
Hey. So happy to be here.
We're so happy to have you on. So as you know, we like to start up the interview with what we call our icebreaker. Nicole is going to be my timer, and you have 60 seconds. So I'm going to ask you a series of questions. No pressure. You got this. I'm pretty sure this is just a drop in the bucket for you, okay? So Nicole, let me know when you're ready, and A'ja, let me know when you're ready.
Okay, I'm ready.
I'm ready.
All right, what's the last song you listened to?
I want to say No More Parties. I can't even think of the artist names, but yes, No More Parties.
I think that's Party Next Door. I think.
I can't even think of it. I'm like drawing a blank, but yes, that was the last thing I was bumping to.
Okay. If you could be any animal, what would you be?
Ooh. I would have to say a dog. I know my dogs have a great life, so I would just love to live like them.
I second that.
I was going to say, you and Nicole can relate on that. Most of your free time is spent doing what?
Oh, I'm sleeping 100%.
I'm the nap queen. I can relate to that. So you've been granted the time to travel anywhere in the world. Where are you going, and who's going with you?
Ooh, anywhere. Oh my gosh. That is so hard. I don't know. I don't know. I would say like the 96 Olympics. Like that's a time that I like really wanted to like go to and like vibe like in Atlanta. Like I would only imagine what that looks like.
That's a good one. Okay.
That was good.
That was good. Thank you. So like we mentioned, I had an opportunity to learn a little bit more about you. And Nicole and I have kind of shared notes before we got on. And I think that you'll be able to talk to this more than what we can. So let's just get right into it. Let's start with, your background a little bit. So tell us a little bit about growing up in Hopkins, South Carolina.
Yeah, it was definitely a lot of fun. I had a great childhood, and I normally would tell people like, I don't have a get it out the mud story. Like I had two amazing parents that supported me through and through. Like I went to private school for 12 years. That was very weird for me because, I was just a young Black girl in the South, and my parents are like, we want you to get the best education ever. So they send me to a predominantly white Episcopalian school. So it was different, but I met some of the greatest people ever there, formed a family and a bond there. And I had a lot of fun. I'm a family girl through and through. Like I love my family. Like when people say family over everything, I'm like, that's me. Like I love my family. So I was just a tall, not even tall, I was a lanky, awkward looking girl, just chilling in South Carolina.
And you actually touched on that in your piece, Dear Black Girls. Like I mentioned, which is powerful and real, and you were unapologetically you. And I just thought it was incredible. What inspired you to share your experience and perspective at that time?
I feel like it was during a lot of like the Breonna Taylor situation and the murder, I should say that. And I just felt like Black women just constantly got swept underneath the rug. Like, I feel like we're constantly fighting this battle it's unseen to the regular eye, but Black women know what we're talking about. And I felt like that was the best time before heading into a WNBA bubble where I wasn't going to be able to see my family, that people understood that this is an era of women, but particularly Black women, that's not letting up for anything. And I felt like I have the perfect platform to do that as being an athlete, where people look at me as entertainment and they look at me that I should be this way and do this and look this way. And at the end of the day, if that's not me, I'm not doing it. And I really wanted to get that point across, especially just connecting with the fan base and connecting with that young Black girl that wants to be like me when she grows up, and say, hey, you're going to face obstacles, but you can get through them, and you can get through them at your pace. And I think that's what truly matters.
I was reading it and I was like, I had to keep reminding myself, like, Nicole, this is like recent, like now, like this is not like, it kept taking me back to I don't know when. And I'm like, Nicole, she's 24, you're almost 40. Like, this is not that long ago. Like, bring yourself back. It just really brought me down to earth. And I shared it with my daughters, and one of them plays basketball. So it's definitely something that will be relatable for her as she comes up. And I think it's great.
Yeah, thank you.
I agree. I remember reading it and I sent it to everybody. I was like, you gotta read this. You gotta read it. Not even just because we were doing this, but because it's so needed. And even right now, when we're thinking about putting this series together, a lot of people don't know that there are women behind the Mayweather Promotions brand, and we're Black women. And so we felt it was necessary to do this. So you just affirmed everything that we knew we should be doing, and how we need to continue providing this platform and showing people that we are within reach. And we're not that far, we're not that high, we're not untouchable or anything like that. So without actually giving away the entire story, you mentioned in your piece that there was a birthday party and you were asked to stay outside. How did you channel your feelings when your friend told you that? And, how did you, what was going through your mind at that time? And do you recall?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing was just like, I was young, so it's kind of like like, what you mean? Like, girl, stop playing, like, because we were cool all of a sudden. It's just like, I didn't just turn Black today. Like, you saw this in me leading up to it. And it was just one of those moments where you just kind of like laugh it off because you didn't believe it actually happened. But boy, when I told my parents, I was like, okay, this is a big situation that we're dealing with right now. And I think that's when I got my first dose of true racism. And I'm not saying that my parents protected me from it or anything, but it was just something that you got to go through. We've all had that moment. And that was my first time. So for me, my emotions were all over the place because I was young and I was just naive. And I was just like, okay, like, I guess she meant like it's going to be a theme party, like something. But no, that's when my parents really had to pull me aside and have that conversation with me. And that's why I shared kind of in my piece a little bit that the Black male gets that conversation every single day. Like every day, if they about to go out to a party or anything, they get that conversation. But who's telling that Black daughter that? We don't get that conversation like that. And those conversations have to be said on our end just as much as it has to be said on the male side of it. So I think that's when reality kind of sinked in. Like, I still was a kid, of course, but that's really how I channeled it. I was just like, okay, so I got to watch my back in a way because I just don't know. But my parents handled it with grace. I'm sure they did. They could have did a million other things, but they really handled it in a great way, and it helped me learn exactly who I am.
And for those young women, even not just young women, but women in general who are double minorities, as you like to mention, being Black and a girl, what advice would you give them right now? Because you're 24, you're experiencing it. Like Nicole said, she's almost 40 and she was experiencing this. This is still happening today. So I'm sure there's people of all walks of life who are experiencing this every single day. So what advice would you give to them?
My biggest thing is always just be true to who you are. Know who you are through and through. And it doesn't mean that you have to know today or tonight, or it could be years from now, but start to figure out who you really are deep down inside and see where you can plant seeds for the next generation so they don't have to go through what we're going through right now. It was like, it hurt my heart this last year in 2020 when my dad and my mom are like, dang, like you're going through the same thing I was going through at this age. Cause that means there was no change. Like there's nothing. But now it's up to us now for us women that have this platform that's able to be seen to start planting seeds. So now when our daughters are coming up, our future daughters are coming up, they don't have to go through that. So if that means planting seeds in your own circle or in your community, like educate yourself and just be true to you. So when you look in that mirror, you have your chin up high, your shoulders back, and you're ready to take on the world.
I know Nicole always speaks to that consistently, just about being yourself. And I feel like that's also been a consistent message throughout this series, because people compare themselves a lot often on social media, and sometimes they don't realize who they are. You know, you live your life every single day and you're just kind of going through the motions. And I think that understanding what your true purpose is when things really start to click. So you attended University of South Carolina, and you made statements in your piece where you kept referring to unapologetic. Tell us about those experiences and why you chose that word.
Ooh, I actually have that word tatted on me, like right here, because it's me through and through. Like I just really had to learn who I am, and I'm not here to please anyone. And at South Carolina, we have a fan base that is incredible. I'm pretty sure some of them will probably try to figure out my social security number just so they could know. Like they're so that into our lives. And for me at a young age, I'm like, okay, I gotta please her, I gotta please him, I had to try to I found myself trying to please every single fan to make sure that they're happy. And it tore me up. It broke me down because that's impossible for me to do. So I had to realize that I can't please everybody. I can't make everybody happy. As much as I may try, as much as I want to, it doesn't work like that. So I had to find myself, and I came to realize that I can be unapologetically me. And it's like, either you're gonna like it or you can just keep on moving, because I don't really care. I can't care for that. And it was a hard decision, because of course you lose people because you're not acting the way that they want you to act. But at the end of the day, I was comfortable with who I was. And I love that I can be this politically correct media speaking girl. But at the same time, if you come at me sideways, I can clap back at you very quickly. So let's not get it confused. So it's like, it's code switching. I know it is. But that's how I can handle it, because that's what makes me human. I think when, like you were saying, Crystal, when people see the accolades, they don't see me as a human. And I'm like, I have feelings. I am a human. And if push comes to shove, I'm still going to speak my mind on anything that I believe in. So for me, unapologetic was like the perfect word for me to use. And I love being unapologetically me. And I encourage other women to do the same.
And as you know, that word stuck with me, because I was like, yes, let's talk about being unapologetic. It stood out because, like you said, you can't please everyone, no matter how much you try. For you, it was the fans. For someone else, it might be family, friends, kids, work, you can't please everyone. And you do have to be okay with being yourself and being unapologetic about it. Yeah. Actually, someone from the ACEs had came to this, it's called WISE, Women in Sports and Entertainment. They came and spoke, and they were kind of speaking to that, but on a professional level. They were like, stop apologizing for everything. Right. Thank people for waiting on you. Don't apologize to them. She just went down through it. And I was just like, just stop being sorry. Stop apologizing. Take the word sorry out of your vocabulary. So yes. I really could relate to that, even on a professional level. Just like, don't be unapologetic, be you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It was the code switch for me, because like we were talking about before, when the first couple of sentences were like, this is not about to be the piece you think. If you don't want to read this, here's this puppy content, go do with it. And just go ahead and close that tab. Yeah.
Look at my children. Look at them go.
That was like, for me, I was just like, you know what? I really rock with her because it's authentic. It's not just, I'm going to sugarcoat this, I'm going to ease my way. It's like, no, let's start this off right now. Either you're on board or you're not on board. Now let's get into it.
That's it. We don't need to waste time. Like, none of this. We're good with the chit chat.
Right. So switching gears to another powerful piece, because you were on a roll. And I was just like reading, and I was just like, oh my God, and more gems. So you also did Dear Black Women, which was also for Players Tribune. Dear Black Women has so many moments that I wish we could go into, but we want everybody to go and read it for themselves. So we won't give all of them away here. Can you dive into the moment you realized you were wearing a mask and indeed covering up your own vulnerabilities and what led to that?
Yeah, it's crazy because before the bubble, I wrote the Dear Black Girls, and then the after the bubble was Dear Black Women, and I really felt like I went through this shift of adulthood while I was in the bubble because I was so isolated and I had nothing to do but think and think and think myself into a hole sometimes, or think about great ideas that I wanted to achieve when I got out the bubble. And that's when I just really started just paying attention to myself. And that's something that I realized that I really didn't do ever. Like I always, even when I came down to just praying, I always would pray for so many people. Oh my gosh. And then I would forget myself. And I would do all these things for other people, then I'd forget myself. And I didn't realize that over time, my mind, my soul, my body was just deteriorating. It was just going down, going down, going down. But I didn't think of it because I'm so busy worrying about everybody else. So I battled with self-neglect, and anxiety through the roof. But I always felt like I had to put this mask on because who wants to see a girl that they think is so elite, so good at this basketball thing, go through something? And I would always try to just hide it. I would always mask it, always just got to put something on and just be that smiling face that everyone like loves. But behind the scenes, I was crying. I was like, just like trying to figure out what is going on with my life, with my mind. And it was tough for me. And when I wrote Dear Black Woman, I knew that I needed to get that out of my system because I was like, ain't no way in hell I'm the only woman going through this, you know? Like, and I wanted people to understand that even elite athletes or someone on this type of platform goes through that stuff as well. And that's when I truly said, I got to take this mask off because I can't breathe. Like I literally could not function because I was forgetting about myself. And I feel like particularly the Black woman goes through that so many times because we have to work 20 times harder than the average person, the average woman, just to achieve barely what they are just matching with. And I'm like, this isn't good for us. Like, this is not going to, it's not going to end well for us. We have to continue to be us and know exactly what we bring to the table and stand by it. And that's where Dear Black Women came from. And I was so worried the day before it dropped. I was just so nervous because I didn't know how people were going to take it. I was like, oh my God, we're about to just get really crazy. Like people are gonna think I'm weak, people gonna think this. But I actually got a great reaction out of it, probably even bigger than Dear Black Girls. And I was just so happy with that once again. And I was crying my eyes out. It's full circle.
And you kept saying in the article, Black women, weakness is not something that we're not vulnerable at the end of the day.
Right.
And it's the same thing for Black men. You're not supposed to complain. You're supposed to just keep things going. Right. And I think Nicole can relate to me where working in boxing, where there's not that many women, I feel like I consistently find myself having to put this mask on because you're in a male dominated industry and it's like, you don't show feelings. This is a gritty sport. People go through stuff all the time. Most fighters have the craziest stories you've ever heard. So it's like, why, I got to put on a face and not show. And so I think that it was so refreshing for you to sit there and identify how Black women have always kind of been trained or conditioned to feel like you're not supposed to be weak. You're not supposed to show feelings. But the reality is, it does cause depression. And I think that that's a very, very important thing right now that people should be speaking on because mental health, it's important. And it really does affect you on all levels. If you can't show up, if you can't, think clearly, all of those things, you got to kind of dissect what's going on. It's, it's not just one thing. It's usually one thing tied to another thing, tied to another thing, tied to childhood trauma, tied to, you know what I mean? So it's just like this thing. And you're just like, next thing you know, you're in a black hole of like, dang, I didn't even know I was this messed up.
It's true. And it goes back generations. If you look back at your mom and your grandma and your great grandma and just the stuff they go through, and some of my grandmother gave me great advice, but some of that stuff I was like, no, I'm not. No, we got to put a stop to some of this. We're not gonna hold. Not gonna take all of this. But it just goes back, and that's just kind of how we've been trained, especially even with kids. You always want them to think everything's okay, and I'm not even gonna say that's just women or Black women or people. I can speak for myself, but you always want to be okay, and that's just kind of the mask that I find myself wearing a lot.
And that's when people say break those generational curses. Like, it really is true and true, which leads into my next question of looking back on your experiences, Asia, how does it feel knowing that the very same college campus that you recently were honored with a statue of, your grandmother couldn't even walk on that campus. She had to walk around the campus. So, I mean, you don't have to go super deep into it, whatever you feel comfortable sharing, but just kind of tell me about those experiences and how that's shaped your legacy.
Yeah, it honestly just goes back to when I mentioned about planting the seeds. Like, I always say, like, that moment just showed that I'm just now reaping from the benefits of the seed that my grandmother planted for me years ago. And that's what makes me feel like I have to just continue to push for the young girls that particularly look like me, but for young girls and boys around the world, because I got to plant these seeds because I'm now reaping from them, you know, like I want to continue this positivity, like shining this light on things, the right things. And it's still truly amazing. I'm still surreal, like I'm blown away still by this whole statue thing. It's a blessing, blessing. And I just remember when my mom and my uncle, her brother, was telling me that just the location that I was at, my grandmother couldn't even walk across because she was a Black woman in the South. And it's just crazy how it's like, well, now look what's up there, her granddaughter. Like, it's just amazing how change does not happen overnight, but it's coming. But we just have to put the work in. We have to continue to put that left foot in front of the right and keep taking this walk and this journey of just the change. And I'm so happy that I'm now in it and I'm growing into it, because when I think about statues, the person either is on their way out or they already out. And I'm here, I am 24, so I can kind of look at it and live it and like see people take that selfie by it, their daughter dribbling a basketball by it. Like, I can kind of see it. And of course, social media helps out so much, but that's like truly amazing. And it's something that I won't take for granted at all. But it really just goes back to just planting those seeds and continue to do that. And so when people look at that statue, they don't just look at what I did inside that arena that it's standing out in front of, but what I did in the community. How did I help the next person? And that's kind of where it all comes from. And I'm just so happy that it's up. It's crazy. My parents drive by like every day and they're like, going to see you, Asia. And I'm like, oh, like, he sends me selfies. And I'm like, and that like makes me even more happy that they're here to even like celebrate that and to be able to say that their daughter has a whole statue. Like, it's crazy. And I'm just truly blessed. I am blessed through and through.
You are blessed, and you've dismantled so many norms. You know, like you said, a statue is usually for people who are on their way out. You have accomplished so much at such a young age, and you're really in the midst of creating this groundbreaking legacy. Was this the plan all along, or how is it just?
I laugh because I'm like, there's no way in the world that you could sit and tell like 16-year-old Asia she was going to be this at the age of 24. Like, it was no way in hell I would ever think that. I was trying to be on somebody's couch, just kicking it, like just chilling. And my parents were like, oh no, you're far from normal. Like, you're not about to do this. So I'm glad they pushed me. But this was not the plan at all. This is all God's plan. And I'm just so happy to be just a part of it and just living the journey.
I love that. And so the world still needs so many more things to change. We're not even close to where I think any of us feel comfortable in terms of, social issues, humanity, and things like that. So from your personal experiences, what do you think the world needs more of to keep this shift going?
I would just have to say representation. I think representation matters. I think when you have so many people, just diversity in a whole, which gives a chance for people to look and say, wow, like I could be a Crystal, I can be a Nicole. Like, it's just, that matters, because in all honesty, I didn't know you guys were behind Mayweather Production. I didn't know, but I'm so glad that I can see this platform being used in such a bright light to where I can say, wow, like, yes, they're there, they're representing, they're holding it down. Like, that is so key. And I think that's the biggest thing. And that's what we talk about in the WNBA all the time. Like, if you can see us, you can be us. And that's key. Like, how is a young girl supposed to dream of being in the WNBA if she never sees a game? If every time she tries to find a game, something's going on, leak doesn't work, it's not showing. Like, how is she supposed to say, wow, like I could do this? And I was lucky enough to have someone like a Candace Parker that I could watch on college, watch her hoop and say, whoa, I want to be like her. She makes it look easy. And that's where it starts. It really does. Visibility and that representation is going to be so key. And that's kind of how I like to see it, as just, how can I put myself out there in a positive light so that next young girl can be like, wow, I want to be like Asia. I want to do what she's doing. And you can't do that if they can't see you. So just being out there in that light is definitely key for me.
And I think what makes your story so unique is your transparency. It's one thing to, like you said, if you see it, you can be it. But what you've done is you're showing every step of the way. You're not just from college to becoming this great player. And then people are like, well, I see her here, but you know, how did she get there? And so that bravery that you've shown through these two pieces alone have given people hope at the end of the day, and they've given them a roadmap, I guess is what we'll call it. And I think like that honestly is what sets your story apart from most. So I thank you for your bravery, and I thank you for sharing your story with us.
Thank you.
And you may have touched on this already, but you know, I just want to know, what is one thing you want to be remembered for?
Ooh, one thing. I think the biggest thing is just like, they talk about how great of a player I am. Ooh, that's like all cute. But I just wanted people to really understand of the type of person that I am. I think that's kind of who I really want to leave that stamp on. Like, yeah, she's a good player. She's all this, but like, she was that great teammate. She was always there. Her loyalty stood still. And like, that's kind of how I see it, because that defines just a real genuine person. Like, I try to be as genuine through and through, because I don't need to switch it up. Like, it's either you're gonna like me or you're not. I'm just take it how I am. I'm not gonna change for you. And like, that's kind of how I want to be remembered. It's just a genuine person that is constantly just looking after the next generation or the next person.
You were giving me all the homegirl energy today. Like, I just wanna carry you in my pocket. Just be like, when I need a little bit of homegirl, like, you got this, girl. You got this. It's all the black girl magic, the homegirl energy, the you can do it, the hope. It's everything for me. So we like to end the interviews with a fill in the blank. So you can answer this how you feel. What does it for you? What keeps you going? What makes you happy? What gives you joy? So it's the blank for me.
Oh man. Oh, that's a good one. It's the passion for me. Like, it's just the love, the vibes for me. Like, that is just positive vibes. Like, that's for me. Like, I love that type stuff.
I'm always here for the positive vibes. So for those who
before we move on, because this is the last of the
you got a surprise
series, Crystal, I need to ask you, what is it for you? What does it for you? What keeps you going?
Oh man. It's the vulnerability for me. I think that this series alone has taught me that everybody has a story. Whatever you see is probably a quarter of what you see. And in order to really touch people, in order to resonate and inspire people, you have to show a side of you that you're not always comfortable showing. And so I've been challenging myself to just be more vulnerable and just be like, this is me. This is who I am, unapologetically.
Yes. Yes. Snaps to that. Yes.
Nicole.
Ooh, I guess
you thought you were gonna get out of me.
For me, it's definitely that full circle, that fulfillment. It's fulfillment for me, just bringing everything around to completeness, just feeling complete and having that happiness, that joy. It's everything all you guys have said. So I'm gonna say fulfillment, that passion, that vulnerability, all of it all in one, just really feeling fulfilled and complete, full circle.
Yes, I love that.
This is awesome. Well, for those who don't follow you, Asia, on social media, can you let everyone know where they can find you?
Yeah, on Twitter, it is _Asia Wilson 22, AJAWILSON, the number 22. And then Instagram, I always mess this up, but Instagram is Asia 22 Wilson, AJA 22 Wilson.
And we're going to keep the conversation going. So for those of you who are watching, be sure to pull out your phones, follow us on Clubhouse. We're new to the party, but I promise it will be worth it. We're going to keep pushing the conversation forward. We're inviting all of our guests who have been a part of the series to continue informing, educating. For those who have questions, if you just don't know what you can do, how you can be a part of the conversation, if you just want to listen and just take some gems, like, we're here for all of that. So we hope to see you guys in 1 hour at Mayweather Promotions Clubhouse.